welcome everybody to this very special panel discussion called Agent Minds Matter, What Mental Health Means to Me. We're holding this event as part of TTG and ABTA Lifeline's Get Travel Talking Week, which comprises a number of activities and events, and there'll be more yet to take place tomorrow, so do check those out. And just for context, this is obviously all happening during the Mental Health Awareness Week. I'm TTG News Editor Jennifer Morris, and today I am joined by Lee Hunt, Managing Director of Deben Travel, Jean Lally, Managing Director of the Travel Bureau, and Danny Wayne, Head of Membership at ABTA, who I'm sure many of you will be very familiar with these guys. So as this is a live discussion, please do feel free to ask your questions in the comment section of the Facebook Live. And yeah, we'll be glad to come to them as and when. So guys, for anyone who doesn't know, I don't mind if you could kick off by just running us through a little bit about who you are and your role and sort of, how you've got to this point over the past year. Jean, should we kick off with you?
Yeah, so my role is Joint MD at Travel Bureau. So I'm going to split it into pre-pandemic and now. So my role was very much on the marketing side, commercial side, generating business, money, running the marketing team and doing events. So that was my role, and my business partner was much more on the operational side, on the sales side, and post pandemic. So now I've picked up everything and anything that isn't travel operational. So the building, the marketing has had to be reduced, and also all the logistical side of things. So yeah, that's been my role, even down to getting rid of brochures, clearing the office out, making sure health and safety is right for when we come in. And I am the official COVID marshal for the business.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Jean. Danny, how about you?
Hi, everyone. I'm Danny, Head of Membership at ABTA. I joined ABTA 6 months ago, so during the pandemic, having worked in the travel industry for almost 20 years. And I've worked for 3 different ABTA members, including running my own business for 10 years. And my role is to look after the end-to-end member journey. So from leads and onboarding through to the relationship management and engagement with existing members, right the way from independent travel agents to consortia, cruise lines, coach operators, and everything in between.
Okay, brilliant. And Lee, last but not least.
Yeah, so I'm Lee Hunt. I'm the owner of Deben Travel and Cruise Ready. We have 2 retail outlets in the town of Woodbridge in Suffolk. Been in travel now for 25 years, started as an apprentice on a YTS scheme back at Lumpoly in the day. 10 years ago, invested every penny I had into opening up Deben Travel. Here we are now. Daily, the best bit about my job is quite simply sitting on the shop floor serving customers. That is what I do. That's what I enjoy doing. But obviously, being the owner of the business, I need to do the marketing, the accounts, the cleaning, the tea and coffee making, and pretty much anything else that happens, really. Yeah,
absolutely. And hopefully we will be, in the not too distant future, returning to a little bit more normality. But I appreciate at the moment we're still sort of in the throes of everything. Obviously, we're here to talk about this huge topic of mental health. If you don't mind me asking, would anybody be happy to kind of kick off just explaining a little bit about how their own mental health has fared during the crisis, and then perhaps we can come on to how it's fed into managing teams and things. I'm not sure. Lee?
I'm happy to start. Yeah, it's been the worst year of my life, without a doubt. We work in the travel industry because we enjoy what we do. It's a fun job. We don't do it for the money and the glamour. If we did that, we wouldn't be working in the travel industry. So, having set up the business 10 years ago and it being an extremely successful business, making good money, never having any worry problems as a business or as an individual, it really does just feel in the last year, my life's just completely fallen apart. The business is now on its knees. We've got debts. I can't sleep, constantly worrying, crying for no apparent reason, short-tempered, feel I've lost my personality. It is a disaster. It really is. What this last 12 months has done to me as an individual is totally changed me as an individual. And I suppose the worry is, and I think probably a lot of people watching have got the same worries, you're kind of concerned you're never going to get it back again. And And, you know, from a business perspective, but also a personal perspective, as an individual, I'm concerned I've lost my old self because I can't see how I'm going to move on. So yeah, in a depressing answer to your question, it's just an absolute disaster.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really important, I think, to be completely honest and transparent. And thanks for your sort of transparency there. As you say, it's kind of thinking at the moment, whilst we're still in the midst of everything, it's really hard to envisage, you know, these happier days that we've all been kind of promised, and throughout the pandemic, all these sort of false endings, isn't it? And yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'm sure every other travel agent in the land is probably feeling really similar. Is that sort of similar sentiment from you, Jean?
I think Lee's described it brilliantly. You know, I think I'm fortunate that, you know, my business partner Anne, you know, it's really critical. We've done a lot together, and I think that being able to say to somebody else who's in the business, look, I'm not having a great day today, you know, and Lee describes it really, really well. You know, I'm a very sort of results orientated, really salesy, you know, that's my thing. I'm a salesperson. I'm a really, what I've been told is a very up person, and that's my nature. And I'm always looking for solutions, Jennifer, and I've found this has been the really difficult thing. I'm a very solution orientated person. If there's a problem, I'll find a way through it, and I'll deliver on it, and I'll solve the problem. And I think that this has been, it's been impossible for my personality type, because I can't solve it. I can't solve that. I think having somebody else in the business does help, because you're able to bounce that off each other. But it's been horrific, you know. And I think Lee made a really good point about, you know, who are you as a person? Because everybody has a persona that they are, you know, I'm this kind of person, and I'm an up person, and I really enjoy being around people and selling and seeing those numbers come in. As soon as that's gone, you start to question, will I be able to get that back? Now, I think what was really important is that we did a bit of mental health work before COVID was even thought of, and we went to a couple of sessions where somebody who'd been very successful, a guy who'd been very successful in the 60s actually, but had terrible mental health problems, and right through to today he works with schools and young people, and it's really helped me, because he said to me and everybody, compare and despair. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. It's really helped me, because you can only look, for me, this is how I've coped, is at your business and how you are working with that business and your team. And if inside yourself you can say, I have done every single thing I possibly can to make this business survive, then don't go and compare yourself to a bigger business or a smaller business, or it's generally the same on social media. Don't look at social media. Don't look at other companies, because what he taught us was, all you'll do is find yourself despairing about what you're not doing. And I have to tell you, that's been really valuable for us, but it's been, and it's okay to be down. I've also learned that. It's okay to have a day when just last week, I said to my business partner, Anne, I feel really rubbish today. And she said, it's funny, you know, I do too. And we just had a real moan fest, but you know what? I felt lighter once we had that discussion, and then you get yourself together and you say, right, I've got to deal with BT today, or I've got to deal with this, or let's get on and do something practical.
Yeah.
So that's how we've managed it and dealt with it. But we're still in it, Jen. You know, we're still here. This is the thing. It's still ongoing. Absolutely. So that is the challenge for us all.
Yeah, and I think especially, I think all personality types, but I think everybody, especially probably leaders and managers, because you're so used to leading from the front and being the one who everyone relies upon and depends upon, you know, you probably think, I have to constantly be in this kind of positive, you know, solutions driven mindset. But then, you know, you've also got your own, you know, problems, your own family, your own personal lives as well, kind of all feeding into that. So you can't really look at anybody in isolation and kind of just be the person who can, you know, cut through it all. I think like you say, I think everybody has sort of been touched by this. But Danny, how is it kind of talking to members? And, you know, have you had to, I mean, I suppose firstly, personally for you, presumably you've had similar struggles, but then how do you kind of go out and then speak to members and try and keep everybody upbeat?
Yeah, it's been an absolute roller coaster from start to finish. I think for me, one of the worst parts was the last week of June. So my partner, who also worked in travel, was made redundant, and then the same week, the company where I worked announced 425 redundancies. So that was really scary time, and you're thinking, how are we supposed to live? How are we going to pay the bills? Are we going to be evicted? We're going to have to move home, move back in with the parents. That all of those things going through your mind at the time. And then from a membership perspective, I only joined ABTA 6 months ago, but I've had now well over 100 meetings face-to-face with members. And I get to some weekends, I'll look back on what I've achieved through the week, and I feel like is it my job to make people cry? Because I do have periods where that's happening on a daily basis. And it's, I would say, let's say, nice from the point of view that I've felt like I've been able to support people and get them to open up and try and give them bits of advice and think creatively about what they might be able to do to try and keep themselves either motivated or to help the business. But it's when I've had numerous business owners that have told me that they're a failure. I've heard that time and time again, and it's heartbreaking. And they're not failures. They're living through the worst time that the industry's ever seen. And they've run successful businesses for 20, 30, 40 years. And this is through no fault of their own. And it's fantastic that they've survived and made it this far. So it's just about getting through to the next part and then getting through that recovery, really. And then a couple of the other emotions that have come up have been around redundancies and how to approach those, right through to the fatigue of dealing with customers on refunds and amendments as well. So a real mix of emotions that everyone's going through. And I think all we can do is work together, try and support each other to get through it.
Obviously, I won't go too newsy on this, but at the same time, on top of all of this, I think everyone in the industry would agree we've had limited sort of acknowledgement from the government in terms of the unique position that travel's in, and on top of everything that people are dealing with, to also then not have any sort of sector-specific relief is just appalling, really. But yes, that's a conversation for another time. I suppose in terms of mental health kind of being pushed up the agenda, Jean, it sounds like before the pandemic, you'd already engaged with somebody, which is brilliant. I know over the past few years, it has become more of a talked about topic. Have you guys kind of learnt quite a lot through obviously this awful time, but is it something that's helped kind of put mental health on your own agendas for you and for also just kind of being aware of it for your wider teams? Jean or Lee, maybe?
We had anyway, Jen, we'd looked at the whole topic of mental health because we'd had a couple of members of the team who had particular issues around but outside of travel, their family life. They'd had to deal with some pretty big stuff. So, that obviously has an impact on the whole team. But also, I think mental health has become a topic for discussion, and I think this is why we put in place these mental health sessions, and it's about self-esteem. It's about the way it manifests itself in the workplace, whether somebody's aggressive or they're quiet, or you can just see the signs. So Anne and I felt it was right to educate ourselves about that. But I would say, we're not mental health counsellors. That's a really important point. And you have to refer to get external help, because, it's an extremely complicated, very, very complex problem. And some people have downtimes and then they recover, but some people live with it every single day of their lives. And they're very successful, they manage, but as employers, we felt it was right. And it has helped us. I think I've just said, I went to this, I took away 2 or 3 things. We implemented things in the workplace, but in having been to that session, I had a greater understanding, excuse me, of the complexity of mental health issues. And I think it's been raised, to a higher level, as Lee alluded to, and Danny, in their own personal lives. You know, you just have to find coping mechanisms.
Yeah, absolutely. Lee, is there anything that you've sort of adopted just to sort of take forward to try and support your staff who may also have been struggling?
It's difficult because I must be honest, I'm probably the one struggling the most.
Okay.
And I think when you're the one struggling the most, sometimes you do find it difficult then to support others as much as you should do.
Yeah.
I feel that, you know, if I cast my mind back a few years, I was absolutely one of those people that was of the mindset, mental health doesn't exist, pull yourself together, sort yourself out. But now over the last few years where I've been struggling myself, particularly the last 12 months, you know, it's really come to light that moving forward, I think I will have that extra knowledge and the ways of spotting the warning signs with my team and with friends and you know, and I think I will be there to be able to support more. But I feel when you're the person probably that needs the most support, it is sometimes very difficult to be able to offer it as well. And I think, you know, as an industry, I think, you know, and as a nation, but as an industry, mental health awareness has definitely kind of come on more people's radars over the past 12 months. But there are times where I must be honest, I am a little cynical about it as well. I see some companies, for want of a better word, preaching about mental health, when indeed some of these companies are playing a large part in the reason why our mental health is struggling as much as it is. And that's from tour operators to government to, you know, to various other elements that make up our industry. So I think certainly, you know, moving forward, I've now got a better understanding myself, and I obviously need to know I need to look after myself, and I absolutely want to look after those around me as well. But at times cynical, I think as well. I think I'll definitely say. Yeah,
no, I can imagine that must be quite very frustrating. Have you got people around you, Lee, who have been able to support you, sort of even maybe, you know, your the people that report into you or somebody else in the business?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to the doctors a couple of times. I think Jean said it's definitely important to kind of look for outside help. So I have done that. I'm really lucky. I work with a fantastic team. My assistant manager kind of, this will make me sound like a dog, but she loves to take me out for a walk at least 3 times a week. You know, so, you know, and various other things. I think, you know, with other team members on furlough, they send messages, you know, we try and catch up as often as possible. A couple of them popped in yesterday, you know, so I just think, you know, it's important to try and, it's so difficult not to just feel down and miserable all the time, because inside that is how I am. But when I'm sitting there on the shop floor and a customer walks in, you've got to completely change the person you are, albeit underneath, all you want to do is sit in a dark room and have a good cry. So it is difficult, but I think I've been really lucky because I've had that fantastic, you know, team around me that I've worked with for, you know, the best part of 10 years.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like you say, it's a very sort of public facing role, isn't it? It's, you know, and it's a sort of vicious cycle of, obviously, you know, you guys want to get bookings in, but for that you need to be really out there and kind of talking to your old clients and everything.
Yeah, it feels like, you know, you're an actor in many ways, because you're obviously putting on one performance during the day 9 to 5, and then literally by the time you get back home again, you kind of, I don't know, you deflate in a certain way. And I think for me, that's why it's so important that the shop reopened again. And we are not busy enough to be open Monday to Saturday, 9 to 5:30, but I am there Monday to Saturday, 9 to 5:30, because I feel that's what is good for me. Others may say that's not good for me and I should take time away. But having that routine, knowing I need to be there at a certain time, knowing I need to put my uniform on, that's made a huge difference to me since we reopened.
Yeah, interesting. And you mentioned furlough. You sort of, well, I'm sure you guys don't forget, but it's easy to kind of think, oh, furlough was something from last year, but still so many members of staff are on furlough. And that is, again, like a kind of another dynamic where these people aren't kind of at the coalface, if you like, of working, but then they've got different challenges to face of, you know, as you alluded to earlier, this kind of perhaps a bit of a loss of identity, you know, and you've been somebody who's a salesperson and very, you know, out and about, and then suddenly at home for a whole year. I mean, have you guys been able to kind of speak and talk to the people at home on furlough? Danny, is that part of your role at all, or?
Yeah, and also having experienced it as well.
Yeah, of course.
Personally, I think it's one of those things that it's impacting everyone in so many different ways. And whether it's business owners, whether it's people who've been made redundant, you've got people that are on furlough that their worry is, am I going to be coming back to work? Will there be a job for me at the end? Then you also have the people that have been working as well, that they have the guilt of, I've still got a job, but my friends have been made redundant, and also going through all of the frontline challenges as well, with the refunds and customers shouting at them and wanting the money back. And it's just, the whole spectrum of people in the industry are impacted one way or another. And I think we're all dealing with it in our own ways, and we just need to get help where we can. And I think the other thing is checking in on people and just making sure, just picking up the phone and saying, how you doing? Just to make sure they're okay. Yeah,
definitely. And I'll just mention at this point, ABTA Lifelines commented just saying to be aware that you can contact ABTA Lifeline for sort of personal debt advice, financial management. And I think they are, I'll check whether it's still available, but sort of mental health support as well, it is available through ABTA Lifeline. So yeah, it's definitely good to flag, and I'll mention that at the end as well. A few people commenting, just sort of sharing your guys' views about just how terrible it's been. I mean, do you guys feel at all more maybe we'll come on to this at the end actually, about the sort of the outlook for the future and whether there's a bit more optimism to be had. But I mean, is there anything you guys think that the industry or government, or I know Lee, you've alluded to feeling a bit kind of cynical towards certain operators and things, if you think that they've played a role in this crisis of mental health. But is there anything that we can do better as an industry, do you think, to kind of alleviate the pressures going forward?
I think things like this have worked, but are a massive positive step forward. I think there's a lot of people out there now in the travel industry that are raising awareness of mental health, which I think that never really happened before. So I think things like this are really important. And I think if I think back, just over a year now, when I was on TTG each week doing a 1 week at a time section, I got some really lovely messages from that, just because people were watching that and saying, it's so good to, not good, but it's so good to see someone else going through exactly the same as what we're going through. So I think things like this are great. And I think forums like this are really important going forward, because I think, if I think back on my career whereas up until 10 years ago, I'd only worked for big companies like Thomas. The majority of my career was with Thomas Cook, and you've got that big infrastructure around you. You've got, hundreds of staff members. You've got loads of managers. You've got a head office. When you're the one here by yourself, albeit you have got your team, but obviously you feel a responsibility for your team, your customers, the bills and everything else. This is the only way. And if I wasn't taking part in this today, I'd be watching it this evening. This is the only way of kind of connecting with other people in the industry. Otherwise, you do just feel so alone. So I think things like this are really important going forward, and hopefully it will raise the awareness even further with operators and the way they deal with us as agents moving forward. And you never know, it might even trickle down to certain government departments and they give us the recognition we deserve.
Yeah. Jean, are you hopeful of any sort of changes going forward?
I am. I would say I'm cautiously hopeful. I think there's a lot, and Lee alluded to it, there's a lot of talk about it, but the bottom line is, I know of somebody who's had to wait a huge amount of time to receive any support. So I think you have to follow up, not even as an industry, but I think generally with investment, because that's what it needs. It needs investment as an issue. And people benefit from whatever counselling they might receive, or short-term medication, but access to those services, and they don't need to be what I call the big boy services. They need to be the things that we've just talked about here today, where you know, people generally feel really alone, don't they, when they're in this situation? We all do, because you're sitting there, and you know, your darkest time is when you just don't feel that you have any connection to anybody who can help you. So I think if there is a structure that can be put in place which requires investment, and I mean something tangible. I don't mean people, as Lee said, you know, writing an article about it, but something tangible that allows people to access those services very, very quickly, because I think we're on the cusp of a huge mental health explosion in the general population. I think it's really brewing, and I think it will be after this pandemic finishes and we get back to what I would call maybe the new normal. But the new normal won't be normal. There will still be a lot of people who need help. So I really feel very strongly that there has to be some tangible change, whether that comes from government, whether it comes from our industry, you know, that is part of our lives going forward. And I don't know what that is, but I think we have to lobby for that and make it happen. Practical help for people who need it. You know, when they need it, they get it, rather than have to wait.
Yeah, I would just add to what Jean and Lee said. I completely agree. I think as individuals as well, the travel industry, we're just so passionate about what we do, and we all love working in the industry. And I always think it's important to remember that, like, the hashtag Be Kind that comes up, and remembering that is 365 days a year. It's not just about when you read that someone has committed suicide, whether that's a celebrity or whether it's a family friend. And I've experienced it, seen it myself, where people are aggressive on social media, by telephone, email. So I say to everyone, just before you press send on that email or that Facebook post, think to yourself, if I receive this message and that makes your stomach turn over, or it doesn't make you feel good, then delete it and approach it in a different way. So I think all of us have got a part to play in it as well.
I think, Lee, Danny, that's a really important point. And I think the other thing that I've signed a petition for is on social media accounts where people are hiding behind, any handle they want. I think I think it's critically important that those people are called to account. And I think the social media giants have a real responsibility to do that. And I think if one change comes out of it, as Danny's alluded to, I mean, I haven't suffered with that, but I know lots of people who have. And I think you cannot hide behind a social media handle. You need to prove who you are so you can be tracked down. And I think that would remove a lot of this stuff that we're seeing generally as well.
Yeah. And I suppose whilst you might think of kind of celebrities and things when you talk about these internet trolls, being in the travel industry, even, you know, I mean, maybe not so much at a kind of individual agent level, but, you know, during the height of the refunds crisis last year, you'd see awful vitriol flying around, wouldn't you, directed at all travel companies and individuals and the PR officers who were trying to reply to things.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's also important to remember, as you guys have said, that, you know, whilst it's not something you can switch on and off, is it? It's not like once the crisis is over, I think you said this, Jean, that suddenly, you know, everybody's mental health will be solved and everything will be rosy.
Yeah.
You know, we've got to keep remembering this and keep sort of putting it on people's radars. I suppose it's really difficult because obviously, as you say, we're still in the throes of everything, but are you guys feeling, you know, more than a year on now, are you feeling at all more optimistic now as we're starting to, you know, see this kind of irreversible lockdown and everything? Do you feel like every day is getting slightly better? Lee, would you say that? Or
there's a degree of optimism. I think for me as a business owner, that we're now at the stage where business is a critical point. You know, if we don't start taking money soon, then there is going to be no business. And, you know, then it's not just letting down the customers, but the people that I employ who rely on the business for their mortgages and rents and everything as well. So there is optimism, absolutely. And we must stay optimistic, and we must have future goals, I think is important as well. But I still think there's ever such a long way to go. You know, we're going to be lucky as a business, and probably the majority of the industry, if we make any money this summer. You know, we all know that as an industry, winter doesn't bring us that much profit. So realistically now it's about battening down the hatches and making sure that we're going to last through to next summer. So that really is now what my focus is on as a business owner, whilst at the same time trying to look after my mental health. And I think, you know, we're trying to do that by compartmentalizing things really, and not trying to tackle everything as one huge problem, but trying to break them down into smaller individual problems and trying to tackle them individually, and where I've got the ability to try and delegate them to other people as well. So, you know, there's optimism, but the optimism seems a fair way away still. Yeah,
absolutely. And like as you said before, I'm not sure the government quite recognises that. I think they sort of see it as, oh, you know, now we're saying that we've got travel, you know, travel's no longer illegal. Everything's happy days. Everything's flowing back. Still lack of understanding, isn't there? Would you agree with that, Jeannie? Are you feeling at all more?
I think I'm a realistic optimist. I'm an optimistic person. I'm an up person, you know, so I always want it to be good. And I'm like, right, we're going to go and we're going to smash it and we're going to, right. And then I go, oh yeah, but actually there's nobody coming through the doors. And so I'm realistic. I think there are grounds for optimism, but I think we've got a long way to go. I think it's going to be a slog. And I see it as an inching forward rather than leaping forward. And this is the most critical time for travel agents like us and travel companies, because we are, you know, it's on a knife edge. We're balancing bringing people back from furlough with, you know, not marketing, because if we market too hard and we get all these bookings in and then we have to cancel them again. And I think the situation is still uncertain. I think it's still uncertain. I think we're not through it. So I'm optimistic, but I'm realistic as well. And I think somebody asked me what I thought of the government's travel list. So I said, well, we prepared ourselves to be disappointed, and we were really not disappointed that we were disappointed. So it's about your, you know, they say, oh, you've got this. I said, no, we just prepared ourselves to be disappointed, and we were not disappointed to be disappointed. So I'm optimistic, but I think we've still got a little way to go, if I'm honest.
And also it's the kind of cumulative, isn't it? Length of time. I think in some ways the only thing that's helped us all cope is not really knowing when the end is going to be, because I think if we'd known
if we knew for sure.
I thought it was only going to last a couple of weeks.
Exactly.
I didn't even stock up on perishable goods.
Beans.
I said that'll be all right.
Well, you're still here and you've not starved just yet. But, Danny, how about you? How are you kind of feeling generally in terms of the next few months?
Yeah, I think we are getting there, and yes, I do feel more optimistic than I have been. I think during the lockdown, sort of over Christmas into January, that was really tough because you couldn't see the end. Once they announced the roadmap dates, I think that did help to perk us up a little bit, and the way the vaccines have rolled out well has definitely helped. Once they started opening bars and shops as well, and you can actually visually see that things are getting back to some sort of normality, I think that helps as an individual. But from an industry perspective, there's still a long way to go, and we've got to be realistic that there's still all these challenges in the way, and whether it's the traffic lights, whether it's the funding, whether it's, you know, everything is still coming at the travel industry left, right and centre. And so we just got to keep going and deal with it as best as we can.
Jean, you were saying actually, I think before our call, about having kind of days where you don't, I shouldn't be saying this as a journalist, but don't engage too much in the kind of the news, if you like, and just trying to because, you know, as we said this morning, there's more news about the Indian variant of the virus and all of these things. If you're constantly bombarded by these headlines, talking more about the nationals maybe than the B2Bs, but you know, it can be very that can be really draining as well, can't it, to be faced with?
I think you know, when I visited Australia years and years ago, and they have Juve Day. Juve days are recognised as a day when, you know, you're having a Juve Day, you know, so I think that's my equivalent of a Juve Day mentally. So you just kind of go, today, I need to look at the news. I know, you know, I have to, but I don't look at social media so much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's an awful lot of pressure, you know, to be always on social media and responding to things. And I just have a day where I just know I don't need to look at that, or I only check it once, and then I check it at the beginning of the day, and then I don't look at it again, and I check my, you know, the sort of headlines. You know, I'm a news hound anyway. I love news. I'm like constantly consuming it, whether I'm reading articles or I'm watching TV or I'm looking at social media. And I've just discovered that for me, I just need a day, just a mental health moment, and I call them my mental health moments, you know, where you just have to go, I'm overloaded. I just need to put that away for now, and I'll come back to it. And that's just, it's a coping mechanism, isn't it? You know, it's about, you kind of think, yeah, I'm overloaded now. I can't think straight. That's the other thing. And I think Lee made a very good point about that. You kind of get all, you know, so as soon as I can't think straight, I know I have to just clear my mind, and I have to stop looking at stuff, you know, and that includes Facebook. I say, you know, I'm quite happy to say that includes Instagram, it includes Twitter. You know, I just don't do it. And I maybe have, you know, a big gap. And that really, I find, is good for me. I can regroup, and I can kind of go, right, okay, I'm back.
Gina, I think that's helped being back in the shop for me as well, because when I was working from home and had the computer at home and all the shop telephones were diverted just to my one mobile, it was 7 days a week. You'd receive a call at like 8 o'clock at night, but you weren't too sure who it was from, whether it was from whether it was family, or so you'd pick up and it'd be, oh, it's Mr. So-and-so. I didn't think you'd be working this late. Well, I didn't think you'd be calling. And so, you know, you really can't switch off at all. And I think being back in the shop has helped, and making a real conscious effort now that when I get home, I don't look at the work emails, because sometimes you look at an email, even if it's just a title, and then that'll play on your mind all night. You won't sleep properly. And there's the first thing you think of when you wake up in the morning, or when I get to the shop, I must do this. So I think you've got to have your own time. And however best you choose to use that time. I'm sad, I just like sitting there watching all the soaps. But, you know, it's up to you how you best use that time and how you best wind down. But it is important to switch off, definitely.
Like you say, I mean, I think it's, is it in France where they introduced, even before COVID, a rule, I think, where employers weren't allowed to ask their employees to reply to emails after 6 o'clock or something, which is obviously very difficult for a travel agent, especially when you're offering 24-hour service and things. But perhaps it's, you know, a lesson in kind of making sure that people have defined roles, so that it doesn't just kind of spill over to everybody and everybody feels stressed. It's kind of like, right, well, maybe you're on a shift tonight, but then at least you can compartmentalize. And like you say, when you need to properly switch your mind off, you can, because like, I agree with you, Lee, as soon as you sort of, an email floats through, you see it ping up, you think, oh, okay, I won't open it, but still, then you're like,
but you know, it's sitting there, isn't it? It's sitting on your shoulder.
And you always assume the worst, don't you?
And I think operationally, you know, I don't, even I do bookings occasionally, and but I look after the other stuff, you know, but for the ops, you know, the guys involved in bookings and problems, and, you know, that is incredibly stressful 24/7. And you know, my business partner, Anne, she has the ops phone because she's conversant on GAL. You know, she can she's a very good problem solver. But that takes its toll, and you have to say there comes a point where you just don't do that for a 24-hour period or longer. You just have to allocate that responsibility to somebody else, because it's too much. It's just too much, and it's not a failing.
No.
You just have to say, no, you need to, I tell her, you need to go and do this. Don't answer the phone. But it's tricky, isn't it? It's tricky. It's your business. It's your baby. So you're kind of trying to nurture that baby to grow up again. Like get it to now we're just at the toddler stage. So it's really difficult. So we're trying to get it up to be past the toddler stage and into being a successful, you know, kid or adult.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I suppose it'd be good to sort of part a little bit on, I mean, you guys maybe have already covered it off, but what would you say is sort of the best advice you've been given by others, and perhaps the sort of the best strategies you've learned for trying to kind of cope during the crisis and going forward, that you'll be taking forward? Danny?
Yeah, it's definitely take a break. So take a break from social media from time to time. Take a break from your mobile phone, which can be as simple as turn it upside down so you can't see it flashing at you when you get a message, turning off the buzzer so it's not buzzing on your desk, that kind of thing. Put it in a drawer, anything like that. And hopefully going forward, take a break, i.e. go on holiday. And I think that's important for all of us. It's important, obviously, for our customers and our industry as well. And we shouldn't forget that we provide a service that's an antidote to mental health issues. And that is something that should be shouting about going forward.
Yeah, definitely. How about you, Dean? What would be your the best advice you've been given or that you would give going forward?
Yeah. I think compare and despair for me was a great piece of advice. I thought that was fantastic, and it's just simple. Don't compare yourself to, you're just different. Everybody's different, and I think the other thing is this: just take a mental break away from it. You need that because you're better when you come back. You're just more energized, and do something with somebody or your family or somebody that is going to feed your soul, rather than your business brain. Yeah, I mean that is such an important thing. Soul food is really important, as I call it. I think it's just critical for your mental well-being.
Yeah, sounds awful, but also just being aware of the people, like you say, who make you feel happy, and because we've all got people in our lives who perhaps we come away from the situation feeling more drained. Perhaps it's obviously more of a personal level, but I'm sure it happens in professional situations as well. But kind of surrounding yourselves with those positive people, not necessarily positive people. That's a bad thing to say, but you know what I mean. The people who aren't going to kind of make you feel worse in the long run.
Sure.
But Lee, how about you? Any kind of key advice or for yourself or going forward?
I think certainly, not trying to challenge one big issue, but trying to break it down into smaller issues. If you've got the ability to do so, to try and delegate some of those to others. But I think, importantly, taking time out to do things that you enjoy personally, and that you're not just doing everything for others, because obviously as travel agents, 90% of our time is spent making other people happy, whether it be sorting out their holiday issues, rebooking their holiday, finding their holiday, so it's taking time out to do things that make you happy, whatever that may be, whether it be going out walking a few times a week, whether it be cooking, whether it just simply be sitting on the sofa with a big bar of chocolate watching telly. You just need to do what makes you happy, and making sure you're taking time out to do that. Because certainly over the last 12 months, I think probably as travel agents, we've been putting everyone else first apart from ourselves. And I think now we kind of need to, we need to take some of that back. We really do.
That's it. And I think also a lot of us were guilty, working from home and things of thinking, well, I'm not going to take any annual leave because I can't travel anywhere. And actually, sometimes it's really important, isn't it, just to have a couple of days or even a whole week off where you just potter around, like you say, Lee, get on the sofa with your chocolate, watch your soaps, and have a good kind of just mental break from everything, regardless of kind of where you are, and finding pleasure in kind of more local things. But obviously, we also want everyone to go on holidays. That's very important.
I'll be more than happy to be busy booking holidays today. Don't get me wrong, I would be.
Definitely take a holiday. Definitely.
And hopefully that will be happening before too long. Well, we've been speaking for 45 minutes. Thanks so much, guys. That's been a really interesting conversation. But was there anything else that any of you wanted to raise that we haven't already? I think you've covered off quite a lot.
No, I think just briefly touching on what I touched on at the very beginning, and that is that, as an entire industry, I do feel that as travel agents, we're very much that bottom level of a pyramid. And only through the work of the industry and ABSA and people like that will that help people recognise travel agents and how important we are, and that we are a skilled workforce. We are skilled people, and I think with the industry working together, and hopefully that influence that will have on certain government departments, we won't be seen as non-essential, which we've been kind of branded as. We've been branded as non-essential retailers. Well, many of our customers wouldn't have been saying we're non-essential when we're trying to sort out their holidays and get them their money back. And so I think there's a lot of work to do, but I think as an industry, as individual tour operators, not just the big tour operators, but a lot of the smaller independent tour operators as well, along with ABTA and ABTA Lifeline, and obviously all the travel media. I think we've now got this platform to be able to change for the better, so we can come out the other end and move our way up that pyramid. So it's not the government telling us what to do. We can flip that upside down and hopefully have more influence if another crisis were to happen again in the future.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. And we'll at TCG, I think you said at the beginning, Lee, how helpful you found these kind of discussions. We'll definitely continue to host them and hold them and get as many people to be able to view them as possible. Hopefully this week's been helpful to some people. As I say, there's still more going on tomorrow, so please do tune in. And also just to reiterate, ABTA Lifeline's been commenting, just saying, yeah, do obviously feel free, anybody watching who feels like they're struggling with their mental health, there is service and help available through them, and also, you know, the national charities, and we'll post those on the comments as well, just to make sure everybody's aware of where they can turn to, because there is always help and support available to those who need it. And hopefully, as you say, Jean, going forward, it'll be something that rises up the agenda of the government, and yeah, far more services available.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining the discussion. And we will speak to you all again soon, hopefully when things are looking slightly rosier.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.